Welcome to this week's Whole Week Costa. For Kev, I'm Jay. Tonight we're going to be talking about Star Wars Clone Wars. This is our first three-parter, and after this we only have one more episode for season one.
So the first episode in this trilogy is the storm over Ryloth. Ahsoka disobeys Anakin's orders and loses most of her squadron, prompting Anakin to help give his Padawan a lesson in respect for authority and the opportunity for redemption.
The first thing I want to talk about is that they definitely should have played this in order, because we, like a couple episodes ago, is the first time we're supposed to be meeting Ahsoka, and like we guess she's like 14 or whatever. So it's very tough that she is tough on me that she's like a leader of a squadron at 14.
Yeah, that's there's so many things to talk about. I mean, that's honestly the main thing I want to talk about with this episode is just Ahsoka in this leadership position, because there's really no first weird thing. There's really no build up to it. I've been listening to Hamilton nonstop while I work in my house, because I feel like whenever I have a big project, I just have one series of one series of videos or one album that I listen to the whole time until I'm done, and it's been Hamilton for this my current project. So and the one big theme of that is that Alexander Hamilton wants to, there's a lot of build up to him getting command of troops, because the idea is that he's too important to die in battle. So General Washington protects him and won't give him command of troops, but he knows that he needs to do that so that it helps his station after the war. But it's this whole build-up. So when he finally gets command of troops in Yorktown, I'm assuming something like this happens in real life, although I'm not as familiar with the Revolutionary War stuff, but at least in the play, when he finally gets command of troops in Yorktown, it's this big triumphant thing. Here it's just like out of nowhere. It's like, okay, Ahsoka, it's time to take command. You might be ready for it. You might get some clone troopers killed. That's the other thing I was thinking of. Is this just another example of them, even though we see these clone troopers have personalities and they're their own people, that they really don't matter to the Jedi generals above them.
In the beginning of the season, you have the same thing happen with Anakin. He takes his troops on like a mission. Like, it's your favorite episode.
Malevolent.
Yeah, Malevolence. And he takes his troops and he gets a lot of killed. They're like, Anakin, come back. And he's like, no, I can do this. They're like, Anakin, come back. And he eventually just comes back, So it's like the whole arc of these episodes are good, but there are things like I don't like about it. Like the fact that they just rewrote Anakin's arc from the Malevolence to fit her. And then, but they didn't, because this season's out of order. There was no build up. So you're like, oh, okay, we're just starting in the middle of something.
Yeah, I guess it depends what they do with it, because we saw Anakin go from that, he's sort of grown over the season. So we have to see how Ahsoka grows from this, from this event. The other thing I was thinking about with leadership is, and you've been in some management positions. I was in a management position for a few years, and just in healthcare, like I'm sometimes the ranking person there to make really big decisions in a split second. And
cut off his penis. That's your split decision.
Yeah, sometimes. And it's really hard. And especially when the first time you do anything like that, like it's really hard. I was fortunate to work with, I early on worked with a group of nurses that worked with a super decisive doctor, so they expected me to be that same way, and I just had to learn how to do it and just make the split second decisions without just pick your first answer sort of thing, but it has to be
because
right.
You have people's lives in the palm of your hand, just like Ahsoka.
Exactly. Fortunately, and especially, it's rarely life threatening, but it can be a big deal. But yeah, so it's really hard to do. So I mean, I thought they played that up really well, especially where then she's over sort of the battle map after Anakin leaves, and she can't make the decision, even though she kind of has a plan, but it's hard for her to get it out and stick to it. And then, not to be
right.
Not to be too SJW here, but then you have the moment where then, the older man comes and confirms her worth and says her plan's okay. Like she ultimately never did do it on her own. They had to have this outside force validator.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying, where it's like, everyone's like looking around and like this guy that everyone respects, but I don't think it's your force validator, like you man, like this guy's an admiral who's like, yeah, this is the plan, because it's, and then Rex, it's like people that they really respect, like, yeah, no, she's got it. So it's more of those, like, her first command, and she needs, even though technically she's in charge of everyone, like she needs these respected people. It's just like in the real military, when a lieutenant or a major on the battlefield trying to make these decisions, and like everyone's like, we're not doing that, and the master sergeant's like, yeah, do exactly what the lieutenant says.
Yeah, well, it's true, and it is. It kind of happens in the real world military too. I mean, essentially, she's in command because she's a Jedi. In the real world, yeah. I mean, like, I had a good friend that was in the Air Force. I'm not really friends with him anymore, but we had this discussion because when, while I'm in my 30s now, when I was in my 20s, I at some point was like, oh, what if I joined like the reserves or something, like, or thought about something like that, and with a higher level degree, you automatically come in at a higher rank, even though you have no experience.
With a bachelor's, you can come in as an E4.
Yeah, I think you come in as an officer with a master's degree or a doctorate, depending on what branch of service.
No, you have to go to officer training candidate school.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can.
Yeah, but
you can.
So it's like a similar thing here. She's this, basically new lieutenant, who is, just out of school, basically, and I mean, just by her rank in life, she's in charge of these more seasoned troops. It's all the whole thing's interesting.
Yeah, but the whole thing is, she is still a Padawan learner, which is crazy. But I guess you can actually relate it to which the Jedi are, like samurai, like even like junior samurai or Padawan samurai, if you want to say, like the sons of samurai that are still in training would have like commanded, like, seasoned veterans in the Japanese army.
I didn't know that. I don't know too much about that. I'm curious.
Yeah, it's sort of like it's a samurai, and it's sort of like knights, like a knight who's just rich, like still commanded these armies, even though they could like very little battle. It's who's the guy?
I'm fighting those guys in the Erie.
Yeah, like Randall Tarley, right?
Yeah.
Like you have these guys that come out that are like, very green, knights or lords, but like he's had 30 years of battles under his belt, and he's like, yeah, I'll take your command because you're just a higher socioeconomic status.
His son Dickon.
Huh?
Did you have a son Rickon and a son Dickon?
Yeah. So
I just want to say Dickon, but yeah, I think that's the main plot for that. We'll move on to the next one if you don't have anything else to say about Storm over Ryloth.
I just like the ending of the episode where he just crashes into the general ship. Like it, and in the end, it was still Anakin's, plan the whole time. Like it's like a false sense of leadership. It's like he's like, all right, here's the plan, but you got to command these people for the plan that you're going to come up with. But then he's like, guys, I'm here. And she's like, oh, okay. And they still go through with his plan. So it was really never her plan.
Well, I mean, she had to come with her own part of the plan, but it shows how good of a leader Anakin is at this point, because he puts her in a position to be successful. And I mean, that's ultimately, it's sort of a two-way street, right? Like the leader should put the people underneath them in a position to be successful, and then by those people underneath them doing their jobs, then they make their leader successful, and that's essentially what happened. It was a good two-way relationship.
Yeah, I guess we can move on to Innocence of Ryloth.
To sabotage a powerful separatist weapon, Obi-Wan and a small clone force enter an occupied town and discover that its residents are being used as a living shield. So we were debating how to talk about this because, just since we have the 3 episodes, I was trying to think of sort of a main talking point for each episode to not sort of drag things on too long. For the first and third ones, I thought we had pretty obvious things to talk about. For this one, I wasn't as sure, and then we were talking about sort of the occupation, sort of occupation idea or, liberating a people idea. And we're sort of debating, is this more like the U.S. liberation of France in World War II, or is this more like, some of the Western powers, what they've done in the Middle East, sort of,
but here's the thing,
quote unquote liberation.
For me, this episode is more like, the West liberating France or liberating, Germany or whatever, because the clone troopers, we see the clone troopers as liberators, like the good guys. Like we were built up so far because the separatists have started an unjust war. Like if you watch the first movie, that's all really it's about. Like they started this war and we had to get an emergency, military together to destroy and stop the separatist. And now the separatist army is using a planet for like human shields, which is bad. Like they set them up to be the bad guys. Where like World War II is very like clear cut. Like the West are good, and then the axis of evil is bad. So
we're from the West. I mean, in every war ever, every side thought they were on the winning side.
Yeah.
So
but
I'm looking back now, I would say yes. I would assume at this point, just because of who was in the main guy in charge of the Axis powers, that even people from those countries would agree now. But I'm sure at the time people wouldn't have agreed with that.
Looking back, because right now the good guys and bad guys over in the Middle East, the one you want to talk about, are very ambiguous. Where some people might see, NATO, U.S.-led NATO forces as liberators, others see them as terrorists. So it's like any war is the same, but this is very like a clear cut. Like, here's who you should root for.
Yeah, I guess because it wasn't clear to me what the separatists were trying to accomplish by taking over Ryloth. I mean, it seemed like they wanted to occupy it, but then at the first sign of resistance, they just decided to loot the planet instead. So I mean, was that always was it always that unimportant to them that they were just like, well, we'll take it over, but if it doesn't go well, we'll just take all the shit and we're done? Or did they assume their blockade was that impenetrable and they really planned to set up a base and defenses on Ryloth, and this was an important plan to them? Like I feel like unless you know their motivations, which I don't think we get that much in these episodes, it's kind of hard to tell how bad they are. Is this just colonization by force, or is this like, what is this? Is this potential genocide they were thinking?
Okay, so right here it says, it doesn't say anything. Oh, okay. So it served as the key world for spice trade, where slave labor was used to produce goods.
All right, so it's an important world, but again, why do the separatists want it? Why were they there?
To block. I think it's a blockade from people getting slaves. I guess I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think we really get their. Maybe somebody in the comments can, before they subscribe and like the video and all that stuff, can give their thoughts on that. But that's just sort of what made me think of it. And made me think, and I think that in this case that they, the clone troopers and Obi-Wan are clearly painted as, unambiguously as the good guys, and they have that they have the whole plot with the small Twi'lek child as the as sort of the metaphor for that, that they're not there to enslave the people, they're not there to just be this liberating for this sort of liberating in quotes force. They're there to work with the indigenous people there to give them their freedom back and then step away after that. They're just trying to drive off their enemy that happens to be there, and then they want to move on and leave the planet as it was.
Halo 5, right? Well, I started playing Star Wars Fallen Order. So
okay, how is it? I wanted to play it.
It's good. It plays, and people disagree, but it plays a lot like Shadow of Mordor. But what I want to say about that is like the clone troopers are very like homogenous, like all the same literally all the same person, fighting for whatever. Whereas the separatists are armies like basically like armies like in the past where one conquers another species, so you have multiple species and organizations fighting under one rule, so like they are like the most diverse. And it's sort of like so Ray came out the other day and she goes, oh, you killing Nazis? And I was like, well, I'm playing Halo, right? And I'm like, well, technically I'm kind of the Nazis. I'm destroying like a very diverse like alien species, as a one like homogenous like one species sort of thing. So it kind of, if you look at it from that point of view, you kind of see like the separatists are the bad guys.
I guess that's true. I mean,
like the more diverse
see
army.
I mean, we've seen a few episodes though now. Like we saw, in the Blue Shadow virus, where they work with the native people there, here, where they work with the native people. I mean, we have Jedis of all, different types of, sentient beings. So, but I guess that's true. You don't see a big alliance between, you sort of see these like local alliances, not some other major force that is fighting on the side of the Republic. At least from what we've seen. I mean, maybe we just have a skewed view because we're specifically following Anakin and Ahsoka and Obi-Wan. I am kind of obsessed with the Techno Union. Just their whole, just their physical being is awesome. I don't know. I feel like I might for the first time get into look into some of the legend stuff just to see more about the Techno Union. I've never really gone down that rabbit hole before.
Yeah, I read a little bit about them, but I do like how they are very like calculated and precise and everything. And they're like, and the I guess the general's lieutenant of the Techno unit is like, yeah, and he's like steals his general's spaceship. He's like, well, got to take this thing because he's not going to use it. And
he's from Skako. Okay, yeah, Skakoans. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I was looking more about Wat Tambor. But yeah, I think that's it for that episode. Although the one thing I think it's in the next episode, but since you brought it up about them being more diverse, there's a hilarious line in the next episode where one of the droid army says something like, "Oh, he's an old model. He was from a central computer. He isn't diverse like us." And then they're like, "Roger."
Yeah, Roger. Yeah, no, and then so we'll move from Innocence of Ryloth, which we missed a whole plot point about like the clone troopers protecting the Twi'leks. And then,
I think that was just in service of the bigger message.
Yeah, and then we'll move to Liberty of Ryloth, which is our first Mace Windu centric episode, and we find out that Mace Windu is a straight up badass.
Yes. With his forces stretched thin, Mace Windu must convince Twi'lek freedom fighter Kam Syndulla to help him save the capital city from the droid's destruction. So this episode, I felt like the main theme here was sort of sort of another politics thing, because you have Kam Syndulla and you have that Orn Free Ta, the senator from Ryloth, and they come together in the end, because we got to wrap up the trilogy, but and I guess maybe Mace Windu too, but in the beginning, I mean, they would rather. They're more worried about gaining power after the war than the people on Ryloth. They would both rather not work with the other one because they don't want the other one to get too much power. And I just think it's it's a really good metaphor for like what's happening right now.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yeah, they don't want to work together because
and what happens? I mean, I guess this is politics always, and I not to get too much your own political views, but I feel like I've gone from conservative to, maybe like a little center right to like getting more and more left every day. And, but I feel like I'm at the point now where it's just a little, why can't I think of the word I want? A little nihilist, where it's just, this is politics always, as private citizens, what happens to us just doesn't matter. It's just about staying in power. And I mean, it's just very rare. There's actually, I mean, there's something called a book. There's a book. It's like called the Rules for Rulers. And there was a YouTube channel that did a pretty good synopsis of it. And that's basically one of the ideas is that, in order to stay in power, like that has to be your only focus. And in a democracy / republic, like in America, ideally that sort of system, you should help the people to stay in power, because essentially the people in a democracy would be like the key, like they would hold the main keys to you staying in power because of elections. Well, but then we see there's so many ways to subvert that, and obviously even in America we can't get it right, and we think we do a pretty good job, but some other countries that are quote unquote democracies do it even worse than we do, probably.
Have you ever heard of the Lincoln Project?
Yes, and I do not know as much about it as I should.
Okay, so the Lincoln Project is run by the former chair of the RNC from 2009 to 2011, and he came up with a good quote about today's politics. You have Democrats, and then you have progressives, which split the party, and then you have Republicans, and then you have what he coined a rhino, Republican in name only.
That's where I'm at currently.
Huh?
I am currently a rhino.
Yeah, but he's talking about the rhinos where they're not Republicans, they're just Trump supporters, and he's like, that's really splitting the.
That I am a. Well, I guess maybe I'm the opposite then. I believe in the old school Republican ideals, which just don't exist anymore. The small government. Actually, I don't know if I even believe that anymore. I think I'm getting away. I don't know what I believe anymore, but that's what I believed until very recently. I believed in the Republican ideals, and this whole the COVID and the election the last 6 months has totally changed how I think about things. I don't know.
COVID election? It's 8 months.
Bring on the socialized healthcare. I'm ready for it. You can take a little more taxes. I don't care. Just take care of people.
Yeah. Norway.
Yeah, man. Norway. Other countries can do it.
Yeah, so it's like kind of tough to watch these two different political rivals that are like, no, we don't want to help each other because we're worried about who's going to be in charge when this war is over. But like, if you don't survive the war, then it doesn't really matter, does it?
Yeah, but I guess it's I guess these leaders here think, they're going to survive the war. It's the common people that are going to die. So, who cares about them? It's just, if they would rather lose the war than win the war, but have their opponent take power afterwards. Because again, they're higher up in status. They're still going to be fine.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I think there should, from now on, there should be votes and then the loser becomes the vice leader.
That's how it was originally.
Yeah. Not in the primary, because it was just a primary. Like if the two Republicans, the loser Republican or the loser Democrat would become the vice president. I'm talking like if Trump wins, Biden should just be vice president. If Biden wins,
It was originally, I think Thomas Jefferson changed it.
oh really?
Yeah, the first like 2 or 3 elections were like that.
Oh, that'd be great. Then they would be forced to have to work together.
Well, the thing they just didn't. Nothing got done. So,
Yeah.
so that's why they changed it. I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know. We should just do a whole separate politics podcast, because that's all I'm really watching nowadays. And again, I don't even know what I believe anymore.
We're definitely not going to have a great start. Like when we talk about Star Wars and we talk about the politics, which people complained about the most. People complained about politics in the movie series and Star Wars episodes 1, 2, and 3. And then like you watch Clone Wars and it's like 80% politics. And they're like, oh, this show's great. And you're like, well, it's very politics, and a lot of the politics remind me of what's going on, which means it's written by in the middle, 2008, 2009. It's like, what was the same politics going on then?
Yeah, the same politics will always go on.
Yeah, it's like you're like, oh man, you got to make these good shows. It makes me think about my day.
Yeah, but no, I think if you have a good work of art that describes politics accurately, it's going to be timeless. Because unfortunately, I mean, unless we evolve as a whole species, like, it's not going to change. There's the keys to get into power. There's the keys to stay in power. They're always going to be the same, no matter what form of government you're in, and the people don't matter.
At this point, it's one of those things where it's like you just purge everyone. It's like all right, we're starting fresh with all the politicians, and if you were previously a politician, you're not allowed to do it.
Yeah, but then I don't know. I also want to say about electing non-politicians for office.
I mean, you should. You should have. I mean, like I've always believed that the president should have not in the military, but the president should always have to do some civil service, like military, Peace Corps, something like that.
Yeah, that's the thing. We need. I mean, we're totally off track now, but just I think my final thought on just America is that there's really nothing that brings us all together. I mean, I really don't. True. Like, I mean, I really don't know what happens. Like, I don't know what the ethos is like in countries where there's like mandatory military service or stuff like that. It might be better, it might be worse. It's probably just totally different than the American experience, but there's really just nothing. I mean, I just there's no unifying thing I have in common with every other American, or even with probably most Americans. It's just I don't know, and I don't know how we get that back. You
need internet.
I guess. We don't.
You enjoy good internet.
Our internet connection is terrible in America. It's one of the. I
didn't say you have a good internet connection.
Yeah.
I said you enjoy. Yeah, you enjoy a good internet.
I don't know. I've never had one.
Most people do.
I try to play Rocket League on the Xbox, which is like 10 feet away from my router, but it's not plugged in. But it's just over Wi-Fi, and I can't play it in a major city in a major country. Like, I don't know, that baffles me.
Do you have Fios?
No, I might switch.
I just switched to Fios. Yeah. By the way, this week's Hobie Costa comes from Verizon Fios.
Okay, yeah, I might have. It's just Fios. My internet's terrible. So anyway, I guess the second whole half of this episode, I'm just going to get like, I don't know, Biden and Trump things as the background pictures.
Well, you could do like
Palpatine.
I would do Darth Vader and Palpatine and Luke Skywalker.
I'll look for
Skywalker from the sequels. Yeah. So, all right. Well, for Kev, I'm Jay. Check us out on Spotify, Stitcher, our YouTube page, which Kev makes amazing videos for our podcast, and they're only getting better. Apple Podcast. Um, uh, that's it for whole week, Costa.
Now that's it.
And Kev, anything else?